Hi Year 8, I thought I'd just give you a little video just to sort of give you an idea to go alongside with Miss Beetham's lesson to show you what Miss Beetham means in the PowerPoint, and just to go through a couple of examples with you so that hopefully it's a little bit easier to understand and that you have got some examples to work with. So I thought I'd start with the checklist. I've got it down here on my computer, that's why I keep leaning to the side. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sort of main points to use when we're looking at sources, and the 6 sort of questions to ask. So the first one is, what is it? Is it a cartoon? Is it a newspaper article? Is it, in the case of this, something from a diary or a memoir? Is it from a parliamentary committee hearing? What is the source? Secondly, when was it made? So obviously you know the difference between primary and secondary sources, and this is what that is referring to. But also, something, was it written by an adult about their time as a child? Is there anything in that? Does it matter? Thirdly, who made it? Some people might have reasons for not being completely honest. Some people might have reasons for wanting to make a certain situation look worse than it was or look better than it was. So you've got to bear in mind who wrote it and what were their motives. What does it tell you? That's the most straightforward thing. You look at a picture, what does it tell you about that period in history? You read an article, what does it tell you about that period in history? Then it's a bit of a trickier field then after that. We have a look at, what does the maker want you to think? Do they have an agenda? Is there something that they are trying to get across without quite saying so? So read in between the lines. What do they want you to think about what they're saying? And finally, why do they want you to think that way? Do they have a reason for this? Is this someone who is trying to make themselves look better than they are? Is it someone who has got a grudge against someone else and is trying to make them look worse than what they really were? Is there a purpose to this source? So that's the basics, and we're going to do this on source 10. Source 10 is one of the sources that Miss Beetham has asked you to make notes on, and I thought we'd have a go at that one together, and then maybe as well we'll do source 15 depending on how long this video gets, and then you'll have some examples to work with that will hopefully help you to work out how to approach this task. So let me just get source 10 up and I will read it to you as well. Alright, so source 10. An extract from the memoir of Robert Blincoe. Robert Blincoe was an orphan who worked in the mills as an apprentice from the age of 7. He became so deformed because of the work that he left and worked for himself at home. He published his memoir under the name of John Brown in 1828. This extract describes his first day at work. They reached the mill about 5:30 in the morning. The moment he entered the doors, the noise appalled him, and the stench seemed intolerable. The task first given him was to pick up the loose cotton that fell on the floor. Apparently, nothing could be easier, and he set to eagerly, although much terrified by the whirling motion and noise of the machinery, and not a little affected by the dust and flue with which he was half suffocated. Unused to the stench, he soon felt sick, and by constantly stooping, that is bending over, his back ached. He therefore sat down, but this he soon found was strictly forbidden. His taskmaster gave him to understand that he must keep on his legs. He did so till 12 o'clock. Blincoe suffered greatly with thirst and hunger. So that's our source, and it sounds pretty horrific, I'm sure you'll agree, but let's work through our questions anyway. So first of all, what is it? So we look to the text in italics for, the text that isn't in italics for that. What is it? We can see it's an extract from a memoir by a man called Robert Blincoe, although we'll get to that in a minute. The next question is, who wrote it? Robert Blincoe wrote it, and he wrote it using a pseudonym, i.e. he didn't do it under his own name. He gave himself a false name. Is that a good thing? Maybe. Maybe it'll allow him to be more honest. Maybe he'll be more honest because he's not worried about any repercussions of using his real name. Maybe it'll mean that he's less honest because he feels that he can get away with saying untruths. So it's not too clear if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely something to consider. When was it written? It was written in 1828, but he wrote it when he was an adult, about his time as a child. Could he feel very resentful? His work left him deformed. Could he be angry? Maybe he is not being completely, maybe he's making things seem worse than they were because he was left crippled by his work. However, the fact that he was crippled by his work suggests that it was pretty bad regardless. Next up, what does it say? Oh, that's pretty easy. But an easy trap for people to fall into this is they say, what does it say? Well, that's an easy one. It says things were really bad. It says it was dangerous. It says it was unhealthy. Please be specific. So you can say something like, the work was very tiring. He started at 5:30 and he didn't stop until 12 o'clock and he had no break. You could say the work was not safe. He mentions that the whirling machinery was going around all around him. You could say the work was not healthy. And the evidence you can use to back that up would be the dust in the air was suffocating him. So there are lots of things that you can use specific evidence rather than just saying it wasn't safe, it was hard work. Yeah, be specific. Next question is, what does the writer want us to think? I mean, I don't think he wants us to think that life in a factory was happy and good. I think he wants us to think the work was very hard, it was not suitable for children, and it was dangerous. So that's what I'm going to put for that one. Finally, why do they want us to think that? This is a tricky one. Let's look again at why he's written this. It's a memoir, and he's writing it under a pseudonym, and he has been left deformed by his work. I think he is being truthful because he was being left deformed, we can't fake that. And we know from looking at all the other sources that this is the kind of thing that happened. But perhaps he wrote it because he was resentful, because he was angry, and didn't want this to happen to any other children. He wanted this to stop. He wanted it to not be going on anymore. So perhaps that's why he wrote it and why he wants us to think that this is dangerous work. I mean, because it was dangerous work. So that's source 10. It's a really, really useful source. And although they aren't on your instructions, source 11 and 12 might be interesting as well, because they're sort of linked in to what he was saying. Source 11 is also Blinko, and source 12 links into the punishments that they received. So you might want to have a look at those as well. This video is getting quite long. I will just very, very quickly have a look at source 15 with you, but it will be a quick fly through, because otherwise this will take me about 100 years to upload onto YouTube. So source 15, I won't read it out, but we'll just fly through the questions. So what is it? Okay, I can see it is, it's an account by an overseer who is giving evidence to a parliamentary committee. That's probably a good thing. You don't lie at parliamentary committees, right? You know, you've been called up or you volunteered and you don't lie. That's the government you're speaking to, so you probably would be quite truthful. Also, who wrote it? The second question is a former overseer. So he's an eyewitness. He was there. He saw this with his own eyes. So that's a good thing. Being an overseer doesn't really necessarily make him a good guy. He might have done some terrible things to children. He might have seen some terrible things happen to children and not have done anything about it. Maybe this is his way of redeeming himself. You know, he feels bad about his past. He wants to make things right. Or maybe he's going to paint himself in a slightly better way than the reality because he feels bad about what he did. When was it written? 1831. Okay, so similar to the Source 10, Robert Blincoe's account. What does it say? It tells us that children suffered from deformities from their work. Not just when they had accidents, just in their everyday normal work, it left them deformed. Again, this backs up what Blincoe is saying, so that's good. It means they're more likely to be truthful. If they're both saying the same thing, then it's more likely to be right. If you've got more than one person telling the same story, you're more likely to trust it. Next up, what does the writer want us to think? Tricky, but I think it's quite clear that he wants us to think that the work was dangerous. He wants us to know the work was not safe for children, not appropriate for children. Why does he want us to think this? I think because he is giving evidence to a parliamentary committee, and the parliamentary committee want to stop children working in mills or limit their work in mills, then this is he's trying to stop these bad things from happening to children. Hopefully. He is an overseer though, so that's, maybe he's had a change of heart. He's changed his mind. Alright, that is basically the kind of thing you need to do with these sources. Sources can be a bit tricky, but have a go at them. It's the most useful thing that a historian can do. It's really, really valuable skill. So have a go. If you get it wrong, doesn't really, try it, do better next time. Learn from your mistakes. It's okay to get things wrong now and then. And if you didn't watch the Children of the Revolution documentary on YouTube that I put up last week, I highly recommend that you do watch it. It is really, really excellent in terms of looking at the types of work that children were expected to do and how awful it was. It was truly horrific. All right, Sadies, stay safe, and until we meet again.